Hey guys, I just got off an amazing live stream with one of the wisest guys in real estate investing, BiggerPockets co host, David Greene. And we went through so much in this session. We went through how to find if it's the right deal or a great deal. We went through some of his ups and downs getting started in real estate investing. And we even went through should you invest now during the COVID-19 crisis. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And without further ado, here's the video. Yeah, we are live. So, how's it going, guys? I have a very special guest today. His name is David Greene. David Greene is the co-host of the BiggerPockets Podcast. He's the best-selling author of two best-selling books, Buy, Rehab, Rent, Refinance, Repeat, and Long Distance Real Estate Investing, How to Buy, Rehab, and Manage Out-of-State Rental Properties. David Greene is a former police officer turned entrepreneur. He has bought, rehabbed, and managed over 35 single-family properties, and he's been featured on HGTV's House Hunters. David's a top-producing California real estate agent, and he's created a mastermind group to help teach people how to build their own rental portfolios. So without further ado, to borrow a phrase from Brandon Turner, here is David Greene.
So nice. I like that. Without further ado, that makes me feel like I'm at home with Brandon.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what we're trying for here. Okay, so let's get started with the first question. How did you get started in real estate investing? What was the biggest driver? Was it just like one day you woke up and said, this is it, I'm going to invest in real estate, or how did it happen?
No, I had no idea I wanted to be a real estate investor. I didn't know much about real estate. I just knew at some point I was going to want to own a home. So I was at church and a buddy of mine had just gotten into Bible school and he was going to lose his earnest money deposit he had on a house. This was in 2009. So back then, nobody was buying. Everyone was saying, don't buy. And I'd kind of been looking at houses just on the internet, and he said he was under contract for $215,000, and this house was like 2,600 square feet, a couple years old. And I thought it sounded like a good deal. So I said, hey, maybe if I buy it, maybe you can get your deposit. He said, that'd be great. We went and we looked at the house. I called his agent and I said, hey, Matt can't buy this house, but maybe I can. Do you think we could switch it over? And she's like, yep, let's try. Because her brokerage was the listing agent as well. It was a real estate owned. It was an REO that a bank owned, and her broker had been hired to sell it. And then she was a buyer's agent for him. So she was, of course, taking all her buyers to look at their own listings. Right. And I just said, hey, do you think you could get any cheaper? And she goes, yeah, what about 195? I said, okay, let's try. Comes back to me the next day. We could do it at 195. We have to get you pre-approved. So I just, like everyone else, I did whatever they told me. I gave them the documents they wanted, and we went into escrow. And I don't even remember if I ordered inspections or anything about what happened. I just know that we closed and I got the keys. And I found out that I think I advertised it for rent on Craigslist. I had no idea what I was doing. Did everything wrong. Took a tenant, was really busy, didn't even bother doing a background check. Got completely taken for a ride. Went 3 or 4 months without paying. Finally got an eviction. And went and hired a property management company. And that's when I realized, oh, this is way easier when you let somebody else do what you don't know how to do. I could just focus on going to work and making money, and I let them focus on managing the property. And eventually it ended up cash flowing, I think that first year, maybe $200 or $300, which was better than nothing. And then when the next year the rent went up, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, the rent went up, but the payment stayed the same. Now I'm cash flowing $400. If it keeps doing that, this is going to be really good. So every year I just started buying another rental property, having no plans of being a big time investor, just one step at a time.
Wow, that's great. That's an amazing story, how you kind of created this win-win situation and, used your network, right, to get into this property for a good price. So why don't we talk about your book, the book on BRRRR. I actually bought the book and I read it cover to cover. This is a really great book, guys, because it actually has a lot of good stories and, like, I think you call them parables. Basically a story with a moral or a lesson at the end to really simplify the whole real estate process for you guys. So if you guys haven't purchased the book already, go ahead and check that out. So David, what's so great about BRRRR? Do you recommend BRRRR during these times, and why or why not?
Well, the real value of the BRRRR method is just you're rearranging the order of when you do the stuff that has to be done when you're buying investment property so that you're getting your money back after the house has been remodeled and made to be worth more, as opposed to putting your money in the beginning when it's not worth very much. So in essence, the only difference is that instead of leaving equity in the property, you pull that equity out and you have cash. and the property will pay for itself through the cash flow or the rent that it generates, but you have your capital out of the deal to either buy the next deal, have money in reserves to weather a storm. It's just better in a million ways, because when you leave equity inside of a property, you have no control over what happens. If the value goes up, you just get more equity. Well, what do you do with it? If the value goes down, you can't stop yourself from losing your equity. When you get the money out and you convert with the magic of a refinance equity into dollars, and you put dollars in a bank, you can use those dollars to fix up another property, buy another property, have reserves so that you don't have to worry about COVID-19 ruining your business. And you get to benefit from the power of leverage, because as we see from inflation, real estate prices tend to keep going up. So I want to borrow as much healthy debt as I possibly can. And when I say healthy debt, I mean debt secured by an asset that creates wealth, not credit cards or cars and boats, stuff like that, that don't give me a return, so that I'm paying that debt back with cheaper dollars than what I borrowed. I make inflation work for me instead of just complaining about the fact that there's a lot of inflation. And that's what the BRRRR method does, is it allows you to refinance when you're done after you've made it worth more and put your money back into something else. And the question of should I BRRRR in this market, I don't like when people frame should I BRRRR or not BRRRR. It's better to say, should I BRRRR or should I go traditional? Because that's really what you're asking. When some people say don't BRRRR because you can't cash flow. Well, that's not a question of BRRRR. That's just a question of should you buy a rental property at all, right? The BRRRR is a strategy that you use when you're buying a rental. But if it's not a good market to buy rentals in, then the question isn't should I BRRRR or not, it's should I even buy something? If you've decided that you're going to buy, it's very easy. If you're buying a house you can add value to, which is typically a fixer-upper or something you get way below market value, yes, you should BRRRR. If you're buying a house where there's not really a value add opportunity, then there's no need to. Just buy it the traditional sense. But the downside to buying the traditional sense is you won't get your money back out. You're going to put 20 to 25% down, and you're going to put some rehab money into getting it ready, and you're not going to get that money back. When you buy a house that either way below market value or there's a value add opportunity, and then you add the value, then you refi, you'll get the money back. So there's no reason not to BRRRR, even if you can't get 100% of your money out. Okay. If you go in and it doesn't work out well, and you leave 15% of your money in the deal, that's still better than 25% of the money on a down payment plus 10 grand or so on a rehab. You still came out ahead of the traditional method. So there's very few times where a BRRRR is not better than traditional. And those would be times when you're not adding value to a property. In a turnkey situation, you can just go traditional. It'll be a little bit easier.
Right. Got it. That's a really good point. So what would you recommend for newbies trying to get into real estate during this COVID-19 that's going on? Do you think it's still a good time to invest, or where do you think the market is headed as well?
Yeah, I have to remember when I give advice like this that my market is different than some of the other markets, because some markets are probably really struggling. So if you're listening to this and you live somewhere like that, what I'm saying isn't going to make sense. But if you live where I live in Northern California, in like Silicon Valley tech hub, everyone's still working. They're just working from home. Their jobs are paying them money based on venture capitalist money that's coming in. It's not even based on profit. So if the company suffers, the people still get paid. It's not like when you work at a warehouse and if people stop ordering stuff, then you stop working. That project, that algorithm you're working on, that engineer, that software you're trying to develop still has to get done, even if people aren't paying for stuff. So what I'm saying is our market is red hot. I've never seen a market as hot as this, and that's in spite of shelter in place and COVID-19. So if you live in a place like that, you should be looking to house hack for sure. If you live in an area where your housing expense is somewhat high, like more than $500 to $800 or something, house hacking almost always makes sense. It's an easy way to get into real estate investing. It's a low risk way to get into investing. You can put low money down, you get a way better interest rate, and you end up with a rental property. Should you want to move out, you now have the 2 units that you can rent out, or the bedrooms or whatever it was that you had. There's hardly any downside to it at all. The only downside is you can only do it once a year. And after that, you have to buy an investment property. But most new investors are not buying more than one house in a year, So you should I tell people, house hack a house every year, up to 10 deals. And anything you buy on top of that, use the BRRRR method, use my long distance investing strategy. But if you can get basically a freebie where you put 5% down, you don't have to BRRRR. You don't have to get your money back out of the deal because you didn't really put a whole lot in it.
Yeah, it's pretty much like getting a house for free and having your tenants pay for the mortgage and living for free, right? So yeah, definitely. Definitely a big fan of house hacking. So this is a question that a lot of people in my group has asked at some point. And how do you find the right deal?
Well, I think you got to start with defining what the right deal is.
Mhm.
For a lot of people, what they want is a deal that cash flows really good, under market value, don't have to do a lot of work for. I could just go on roofstock.com and pick a house,
Mhm.
low risk and not scary. That's what they're looking for. And that doesn't exist, because if that existed, some big hedge fund like Blackstone would have already bought it. They're not even going to get a chance to see that deal. So in a market that's really hot, everybody wants to buy real estate. There's all this confidence. It's been surging up. Rents are going up. Values are going up. Jobs are paying more every year than the year before. There's a lot of confidence in the economy. Everyone feels good, so they all rush into it. You can't have the same expectations in that type of a market as you can in 2009, 2010, when you could get a great deal, but nobody wanted it. Everyone was scared. What if I lose my job? You have to pick your poison. You're either going to get a lot of good opportunities to get good real estate and do it in an environment of fear, or you can have a hard time getting a deal, but doing it in an environment of confidence. And you're not going to get both unless there's better opportunities somewhere else. Let's say that someone develops a way to invest in tech companies where you can get a 20% return for no money. Well, then sure, there'll be a lot of real estate deals because no one wants them. They're all going for easier money, but you're going to want to go for that easy money too. And so I guess what I'm saying is you can't be afraid of the work or the fear or the problems that come with investing, because if it was not for those, there would not be an opportunity. Somebody else would have already bought it, which is why I love house hacking. If you're trying to get your first deal and you're scared, you're already paying $2,000 a month in housing expense. Why would you not go buy a house that's $3,000 a month, but you can rent it out, part of it for $1,500? And now you're getting a tax incentive and you're paying off part of your loan every single month. So your expense goes down to $1,000 instead of $2,000 for 5% down. It's almost a no-brainer. And you get to learn what you didn't know about buying a house. It's like the training wheels, right? It's so much better to initiate yourself by getting in the shallow end first rather than just jumping in with both feet. And that's how I think most people think, is they're like, I got to dive in. Where do I go dive? How do I make sure that I don't break my legs when I dive or I don't drown when I get in there? It's so much that they never take a step. Well, if you shrink it back and you make it an easier transition to house hack, now you've bought a house, you know what the process is like. You're way less scared the next time. Maybe you house hack again. And then you're like, okay, in addition to house hacking, I'm going to go buy a house out of state, but I know what I'm looking for. I've done this before.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here, because I've definitely heard this comment before or asked about house hacking. What if, you're not comfortable with the reduced or the lack of privacy, or let's say your spouse isn't on board because she wants to buy a house and live in it and have that privacy for both of you?
Can you house hack in a way that still gives you privacy? Most of the people we work in the Bay Area, they do.
Mm-hmm.
We buy houses that have finished basements, separate entrances, or duplexes. Or a lot of the times we'll go for a single family home that's had an addition added to it. So it was built in 1930. And then in 1960, they built onto the house. So it's still old, it's outdated. You're not competing with 8 other people to buy it. You're getting a decent deal. And you can easily put up some drywall between the addition that they added in the original house. And as long as there's plumbing that's already been run to the addition, it's fairly cheap to add a kitchen and maybe expand a bathroom. And you turn a single family house into 2 different units, and you get to be in the best part of town. You're not zoned for multifamily where you're having to deal with nothing but tenants that live there, and you still get your privacy. That's really what we're looking for, is how do we use creativity to make everybody happy?
Right. I love that answer. So what are your top tips for real estate investing for people who live in an expensive market, such as California, such as yourself?
First thing, house hack. Okay, I know I keep saying that word. Here's what I'm telling you guys. Let's take your average person where I live in the Bay Area. Your rent's about $3,500. Okay, you rent an apartment in like somewhere in Silicon Valley. They have 80 grand to invest. That 80 grand, if they go invest it out of state, if it gets them a 6% return, is going to be about $400 a month. Okay. So 80 grand turns into $400. Let's say they crush it and they get $500. If they take that same 80 grand and they go buy something that they can house hack, and they live in a part of it and they rent out the rest, and they reduce their $3,500 to $1,500 a month, they've turned 80 grand into $2,000. Now that $2,000 isn't labeled cash flow, but if you look at your overall budget, your balance sheet, it's still $2,000 that you're saving every single month. Okay. And that's in addition to the fact that you're getting a tax incentive now and you're paying off part of that loan. And every year the rent's going to go up on that house that you bought. So instead of, you coming out of pocket $1,500 the first year, next year it's $1,300, then $1,100, then $800. At the same time, the rent on what you used to live in at $3,500 is going the other way. It was $3,500. Next year was going to be $3,700 and then $3,900.
Right.
And when you have both of those going at the same time, you hit equilibrium pretty quick and then you start gaining. And if you do that every year on another house, that compounds really fast. So what I'm saying is if you're living at home for free, it's kind of a different story because you don't have that $3,500 a month that's coming out of your budget. But if you're already spending money on a housing expense, house hacking takes a $500 a month return and can turn it into $2,000 a month. They can 4X the money that you're making. And you start that timeline where rents are going to start to go up on both sides. One's going up, the other's going down. If you already love your house, you just don't want to move, you're kind of forced to go invest long distance or do something temporary. Do hard money loans to other people that are investors, flip houses if that's what you want to get into. Or I would just tell people it's okay to wait on the sidelines. You don't have to go buy something just to say that you went to go buy it. In my book, Long Distance Real Estate Investing, one of the things I talked about in there that doesn't get discussed enough is having a competitive advantage in your market. When people ask me, what's the best market to invest in? I usually don't think like that. I'm more like, who do I know in a market that can get me a good deal for that market? I don't think Little Rock, Arkansas is popping up on a ton of people's top areas to invest in, but that's why I like it. Because there's not a lot of other people competing with there. And I can still get a house that will appraise for 140 and be all in for like 105 in a market like that. Because there's not a ton of people that are pushing. So if I have an agent or a friend or some competitive advantage in Little Rock, then that's where I would say to go invest. If you go to Madison, Wisconsin, or Birmingham, Alabama, where everybody is going, like you're just going to be frustrated because everyone's picking over everything in the MLS. About 3 years ago, I started talking on the podcast about Jacksonville, Florida, and I just can't buy there anymore because the droves of people went there. And I learned, like, I ruined it for myself, right? Like I had a great core 4 and I just had to let it go because the houses go so quick and so many people are going to that market. So I would almost encourage people to go the other way. Quit asking what is everyone doing and start asking what is nobody doing. Right. And then use the other criteria in that book, a target-rich environment, not dependent on one source of employment. I don't want to invest anywhere where there's only one place that employs everybody, like Detroit, because that's where you get burned. Mm-hmm. And then just look for the good deals where nobody else is. You always want to zig when there's zagging.
Right, exactly. You got to be careful what you put on BiggerPockets, it sounds
Amen.
Like. That's funny. Okay, yeah, a lot of good points made there. Like a lot of people don't think about the rent money saved when they house hack, right? They just see like, why am I not getting a good ROI, or why am I not getting good, good returns or cash flow on this property because I'm buying a property with only 3.5% down, but they don't consider how much they're actually saving in the rental costs as well. So
yeah, and if you look at holistically, you look at your whole budget. Yeah. And your goal is a lot of this comes from Scott Trench's book, Set for Life. Mm-hmm. And his theory is you start with your biggest expenses in your budget and you eliminate them. If you don't drink a cup of coffee every day for 17 years, it can equal this big thing. Yes, that does work. But if you just eliminate your housing expenses by half, you can drink a lot of coffee for a long time and not have to make that cut.
Yeah, true. Okay, so the next question is, what is one of your biggest struggles you had in real estate investing, just getting started out?
Oh, that's really good. Where would I start when I was getting started? I remember I'm not really a detail guy. I don't like to track the details. I like to set everything up, push over that first domino and just let them all go. Mm-hmm. And you can't really do that in real estate investing. There's a lot of babysitting that you have to do. And in the beginning, you kind of resent that. You're a professional. I should just be able to trust you. And as long as you hang on to what you should be able to do, you're never going to do well. You do have to monitor the people who you're using here. And that's why there's got to be enough meat on the bone of the deal to make sense. because even if you come out making 10 grand, but it was 4 months of every single day working on that thing, you'd have been better off to get a side hustle on DoorDash than to buy that rental property, you know? So for people that have really good jobs, you got to consider that if you have the ability to make more money at your job, it might make more sense just to go do that and save it than it is to try to force a deal that doesn't make sense and put a lot of time into it, because you are going to have to monitor people. And the biggest person you're going to have to monitor is a contractor. So the bigger of a deal you try to take down that needs a lot of work, the more work you're going to be doing. And it's not just out of state. So people get burned with out of state contractors, but trust me, they get burned with in-state contractors just as easily. It's just contractors. Mm-hmm. And I found the number one thing that you can do to save yourself headache when working with contractors is don't pay them until the work has been done. It's just this magical thing where the minute a contractor gets paid, you stop being a priority, and the people who have not paid them yet are now the priority. Mm-hmm. And if you give away that power where you say, here's 50% of the money up front, or here's 80%, now go do your job, you can't complain if they don't go do it. You just have no leverage. At that point, your only leverage is a lawsuit. And that's all the people that come complain to me. What do? I already paid him. I'm like, well, you don't do anything now, right? You're basically put yourself at the mercy of his goodwill or her goodwill. What I do is I'll give them a small amount to get started, or I'll pay for the materials up front. Yeah. And I'll say, they're sitting at Home Depot. Go pick them up. When you show me that it's been demoed, I'll pay you some money. Then when you go put these materials in, I'll pay you some more. And I very quick, the minute I say I'm going to pay him, my assistant wires the money that day. I don't let these guys hang for a week, because then they're not going to trust me. But I am very clear that if you want that money, get your guy and go do that thing. Don't ask me to pay you. And then when he feels like it, he'll stop working this job and he'll go do there. Because you got to understand that contractors don't have a ton of control over their own business. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize this. They're not accountants. They're not business people. They're typically mechanically minded people that are very good at building things and taking things apart. And it's a rare skill to have. It's valuable, but they're not business people. They don't often know what their profit margins in on deals, and they're terrible at hiring. It's very hard to hire for the profession of a contractor. So he goes and he finds a subcontractor that'll do the flooring for $1,200, like what you wanted. And that person's working on your flooring, but they don't show up to work half the time. They're fighting with their girlfriend. They just went on a meth bender. Like, drugs are kind of a big thing in there. So the guy will show up and work hard for 2 weeks, get paid, and then go get high. And he doesn't come to work for a week, and he steals all the tools. That happens all the time, right? And the contractor doesn't want to tell you that. He doesn't want to say that the guy that I hired just took off with the tools and he's not answering his phone, but that's what happened. And you're just screaming, get someone out there. And now that contractor knows, I got to pull someone off of another job to go finish the flooring for the guy that quit. But that person hasn't paid me yet. So I need to finish that job to get paid. And when we're done, I'll send the guy over. And then he sends the guy over to fix your job. And that guy's like, I got to hurry up and do this because we got another person waiting. We just gave them a bid. And that contractor started off with 10 people, but he ended up with 7. And now he's trying to use 70% of his workforce to take on new work, and new bids are coming in. And that's why they give high bids. Because they're like, well, in order for me to do this job, you got to pay a lot, because I barely have enough people to keep up with what I have. But all we see on our end is, why is that bid so high? Why is this taking so long? So my advice to you guys is to try to understand how that world works and give them an incentive to make you the priority.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah. I can't tell you how often I hear a contractor say, oh, it'll probably take a month or so. And I already know that he means it's going to probably take 2 months. At least. Yeah,
that's exactly right. He hopes it'll be a month. If everything goes perfect, it'll be a month, but it never does. It just doesn't go perfect. And sometimes they don't have a lot of control over it, right? Sometimes they get really busy and they tell their buddy, hey, I need you to go fix the flooring on this house for me. Can you do it for $500? And the guy goes, yeah. So he takes the full profit he was going to make and he gives it to his buddy. And he loses all his profit with you just so he can work on these other deals. And then the buddy uses one of his own guys, but not his best guy, who doesn't know how to lay flooring, and he lays it incorrectly. And then the floor buckles, and then you get pissed and you call him, and he has to call the buddy, and the buddy has to find another guy. And that's why everything goes so slow. It's just a very difficult industry to do what we're trying to do on timelines with.
Right. But having, as you made the point, having the systems in place to incentivize them to get the job done, right, get it done in a timely manner is it was really what's going to save your butt, right? Mm-hmm. So the next question is, if you could talk to your younger self, what is one lesson or thing you would like to have told your younger newbie self?
Oh, that's such a good one. I was always looking at what could go wrong. So when I was in 2009, 2010, there's probably never going to be as good of a market as that to go buy houses. Right. Where I lived, you could get in your car and just start driving down the road. Every 4 homes had a for sale sign. It was all that you saw. And I would call them and say, hey, you're listed at 225. I'll give you 150. And they'd say, can you do 175? No, I can do 155. And that's how these conversations would go. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'll just go to the next one. It was normal. And if I had bought it at 10 grand over their asking price, I would have made hundreds of thousands of dollars at this point. It was just foolish of me. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I should have been buying everything I could. If it cash flowed, it was in a good area, it was new, and there was people that wanted to rent it, I should have just been buying it. But I was thinking, I got to prepare for every house being vacant all at the same time for 2 years in a row, and I lost my job, right? Like, that's never going to happen where the worst case scenario comes, but we think that way as people. We're always planning for what if, and it's always bad. And by trying to keep myself safe from losing money, I lost a ridiculous amount of money that I should have been making. I should have been buying 4 houses a year. I had enough cash to do it. Yeah. And if I had done that, my net worth would probably be a legit $3 million more than what it is right now, just for a couple years of buying homes. So the thing I would tell my younger self is, if it makes sense, do it, but just always live with beneath your means in your personal life. Manage your personal budget well, so you can take what feel like risks with your financial life. The less control you have over your personal budget, impulse control, spending money on dumb stuff, the less risk you can take in the financial world. That's what I would have said, is like, okay, go big in this area, but play it really safe in this one to balance it out. And had I done that, I would be even better.
Yeah, exactly. It all starts with your spending habits, right? Honestly, a real estate and business is an extension of yourself. So I love that point. So what are 3 action steps that you can recommend to a new investor today? Let's say they have the down payment ready and are set to find a deal, but they're not sure where to start.
All right. First thing I would tell people who want to go buy a property is look into house hacking. If you live near me, contact me. If you don't live near me, try to find an agent that sells a lot of houses and mention the word BiggerPockets and see if they light up. If they do, it just is an indication that they probably understand real estate investing and they have more resources available to help with what you're trying to do. If you're not going to house hack, then start looking at other people that are doing good in a certain market and see if they can help you find a deal, right? This person's crushing it in Kentucky, but they know exactly what they want. Have them send a deal your way if it isn't fitting their criteria, but it would still work. I have a really good realtor in Louisville, Kentucky that looks for deals on the MLS, but there's a lot of cash flow out there. He's done this a lot. A lot of people get properties just because he kind of is used to working with investors. And then the third thing I would say has nothing to do with investing. It's start focusing on what you're already doing and doing it better. So many people look to real estate investing to be their savior, the salvation from the life that they don't like, and it's not going to. All the problems you have in your current life with your current boss and your current job, you are going to have in real estate. They just look different. That's how life works. If you aren't practicing extreme ownership, if you blame other people for why things go wrong, if you have a victim mentality in your current world, you're going to have it in the real estate investing world. If you make a habit out of solving problems for your boss, solving problems at your job, being very reliable, when you get into real estate investing and you have a problem like what I described with the contractor, you can figure it out. It's not going to deter you, where to the person who doesn't think that way, it is going to deter them. And that's a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people, but Brandon and I have had so many talks, and who did good and who did bad, and what's the common theme to try to figure out an algorithm for how to help people be successful. It really does start with what you're doing. If you're not in life, get up and start running every single morning. Start working out at the gym a little bit. You have a better attitude at work. If they ask you to stay late and do something that's not your job, instead of thinking that's not fair, poor me, think how cool, I get to learn a new thing and I don't have to pay for it. Change your attitude, right? Here's a chance to make my boss happy, and I'm going to learn a new thing, and maybe they give me more responsibility. Or if they don't, this is a way I can practice doing what I already do, but faster. There's some good that you can take out of what you're doing. And as you slowly build those skills up, you get to be like that book, So Good They Can't Ignore You, one of my favorite books. You name your price. You get to do what you want to do. And when you get into that new environment and that new opportunity, you'll do really, really well. So even though what everyone is typically looking for is what's the quick answer, how do I just take the pill that's going to show me where the deal is? Right. It typically starts between your ears with the mindset you already have. And as you improve that, you'll just start to see deals sort of materialize.
Oh man, that's such a great point. Yeah, the victim mentality is something that I had to work on getting out of at first. And really, real estate investors and entrepreneurs, they're there to solve problems, right? So getting into that type of mindset, like some people say like real estate's like 90% mindset. So I'm glad you talked about that mindset piece. So you guys can go ahead and ask your questions now on the live stream. I got a question from Alejandro. What's your goal 10 years from now? Work, family, where'd you like to live, and how'd you like to spend your time?
So I'm trying to build. It's very difficult right now because I'm doing the thing that Brandon and I always say don't do, which is trying to build several bridges across the ocean at the same time.
Oh yeah,
Right?
Paradise Island, right?
Yes. So what I'm
Yeah,
trying to build is a one-stop shop for
right.
people to come to who want to buy a house,
Mhm.
where we do everything better and cheaper for them and they can trust you, because that's the problem most people have with why they don't use an agent or why they don't get in real estate is there's no trust.
Mhm.
And the way that the whole industry works, by the way, I'm not criticizing it. This isn't a victim thing. Is the agent or the loan officer or the title company or the contractor or the wholesaler, whoever it is, does not benefit if they do what's in your interest. And you often don't benefit if you do what's in their interest. Okay. Like they're opposing forces. That agent, I've had so many people that I put in my car and drove them around for 6 months and they never bought a house and not one of them apologized. They were never like, I'm so
Jeez.
sorry, or it just doesn't happen. Okay. But I've heard a
Right.
lot of those people complain agents don't care. They just want a commission. And it's true. A lot of agents just want a commission, but at the same time, you're probably guilty of the same thing you're accusing them of. You just care
Yeah.
about yourself, right? So that industry, just by its nature, is very difficult to find someone you can trust.
Right.
And if we ever changed it to where it wasn't that way, it would be a situation where you had to pay agents for their time. So a guy like me, you're going to have to pay $500 or $1,000 an hour for like a lawyer. And nobody wants to do that either. So we got to figure out a way to make it work with the way it is, right? Agents want a commission, clients want a deal. We have to work together. So I'm trying to find a way to create a one-stop shop where you come to us. We're trained in helping you find deals. We have either contractor people that we can recommend, or I own a contracting business. We have appraisers that we go to right now. I wouldn't mind owning an appraisal company that could run the numbers for you. I got my loan officer's license, so we can do loans for our own clients, and I can do them much cheaper than all the other people can do, which mean better rates for my buyers. Or the same goes for refinancing. If like there anyone right now in California has higher than a 3.5%, they need to reach out to me because we can save them money. Mm-hmm. I want a one-stop shop that people who know me or live near me or anywhere around me can come to because they trust. I listen to him. I know his method. And I'm trying to build all that at the same time. That's what's really hard, is creating an ecosystem where every piece benefits the rest, right? We flip houses. So we have a construction company that flips our houses, but you can use that construction company when you buy a house with us. And when we sell houses, we can get your house fixed up so it can sell for more. Trying to figure out how to make all that work. And I'm needing really talented people that can help me do it. That's been my biggest struggle, is how do I get people that are kind of on my level that work as hard as me? But if I get that, the cool thing is I can make it into a system that can then be franchised to different parts of the country. Mm-hmm. So there could be that David Greene team system in Dallas, Texas, right? And Detroit, Michigan, and Miami, Florida, and wherever we want, where there's a person that I can trust to run my system, my models, my teaching under, and be accountable to my company, so that everywhere people can have a place that they can go to. It's a really big goal. It's really hard, but that's what my goals are for work. And once I hit that point, what I'm hoping is that I get to a place where, I can, like, you have a family, you can make your family your priority. But more important than that, what I really want is to be able to teach other people how to build wealth. So we all have our own different political ideas, right? Mine in general believe that capitalism is the best way for a normal person to improve their situation in life. It brings out the best of human beings. When you get to the points where everything's given to you, there's a very rare person that actually gives their best when they're just being handed to them. Okay. Yeah. There are some people that are just so good inside they will, but that's not most people. Right. So I like that capitalism forces me to improve the areas where I'm weak and be a better person. And in return for that, I can make more money. And in return for that, I can create a job for the next person and I can teach them what I did, and then they can improve their life too. And I'd love to travel to parts of our country and other countries where the people are in poverty and figure out a way to involve them in what I'm doing here to give them opportunity, to allow people to get themselves out of the situation they're in, as opposed to just go throw money at them and pat myself on the back and say, I did a good thing. And that money's gone in 3 months and they need more.
Right. Wow. That's a really good point. Yeah. So guys, treat your real estate agents well, because they work hard for you guys. Yeah,
for that.
Definitely. So the next question is from Misha. What are some good little known indicators to look for when choosing a good location?
What are some things to look for when choosing a good location?
Yeah.
So the first thing you want to look for is, like, there's one Achilles heel to real estate investing. What would you guess that it is, right? If you had to think of one thing that can go wrong to screw the whole thing up.
There's so many things. Just not getting financing, not having
Let's say you already own the place.
The contractor is going overboard on the budget, over budget.
Okay, let's say you've got through all that. You own a rental property. In your opinion, tenant. Ryan, what would you say?
And what do you mean by the tenant? If you get a bad tenant that you have to end up evicting.
There you go. I'll take it even one step further, but it's on the same principle.
Right.
The income stream, the rent. If you get a bad tenant or you can't get a tenant at all, it doesn't matter how good you did with everything. It's buying a rental is buying a business that has one stream of revenue. It's like buying a 7-Eleven, but all you can sell is gas or something, right? If the gas station across the street's cheaper, you make zero money. Whereas if you're a convenience store, you may not make money on gas, but they're still going to come in to buy a Slurpee or buy a snack or a soda or something like that, okay? Multiple streams of income are always safer. And rental property investing that's its risk, is there's a way to make money. So you've got to be really careful that you buy in an area that's going to have a demand for tenants. There's a place that they want to rent. If you go buy in a place that everybody leaves, or if, God forbid, like population growth stopped happening, like everyone just stopped having babies or something like that, 20 years down the road, it's going to be rough to be a landlord. Like, we're all going to be fighting over the tenant pool. Now, that hasn't been the case lately. The population keeps growing. People are trying to move into America. Wages keep going up so people can afford more for rent. As long as that continues, this is a great way to build wealth. But I watch that very closely. If I ever see, like, the next generation after millennials, whatever we call them, if they become we don't believe in having children because it's polluting the environment and there's this huge movement to have babies in it, I would be like, okay, time to start like planning my exit strategy here, because I don't want to own a bunch of houses that nobody wants to rent. So what I'm getting at is, when you're trying to figure out where to buy, you want to buy to a place people are going to. Watch where people are moving. Watch where jobs are moving to, right? I live in California. There's a lot of people leaving, but that's okay because there's a lot of people coming in. At a certain point, if that changes, where there's less people coming in, or the people coming in don't make the same money as the people leaving, I would look at slowly moving outside of California, or staying in the parts of California where the people actually live. That's when you don't want to invest in the wrong spot. So, like, for instance, there's probably always going to be people in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Bay Area, LA. The weather's awesome. The opportunities here. We have Stanford, we have Berkeley. There's always going to be bright, talented people that come here, and then they're going to stay. So that you're fine there, right? Imagine, like, that's the high ground. And even if the waters go up of people leaving, you're still safe. Fresno could be tricky, right? Like an agriculture-based place, and like gangs are starting to become a bigger problem there. If people start leaving California, or farmers can no longer make money, we don't have water, whatever, that's the place you kind of want to get out of. So I have that in my mind as you're paying attention to this. If you look at the country as a whole, look at the whole thing tilted like this, and everyone's sliding into the southeast. That's where jobs are going. That's where populations are moving to. Hollywood does a lot of their movies in Atlanta right now. If you guys go to Atlanta and get in an Uber driver, ask them who all their clients are, and they'll tell you it's film producers, it's camera crews, it's the grips, all the people that are going out there to film movies. There's a lot of people that are moving because the southeast is a lot cheaper and it still has relatively good weather. So that's what I look at when I'm trying to figure out where to invest. I prefer climate-friendly places, just in general. Right? You could get away with buying in North Dakota right now because everything's going great. But I feel like when the economy changes, or as technology improves and a lot of companies go remote, they don't have to be in the middle of San Francisco paying ridiculous amounts of money for rent. Those companies are probably not moving into Fargo. They're probably going to be moving to somewhere where the weather is nice, where it's a business-friendly environment. And that's where the jobs are going to go, which means that's where the people are going to go, which means that's where the rental demand's going to be.
Yeah, that's so awesome. The rent follows where the jobs go, to put it simply. Okay, so the next question is from Daniel. It's, what's a little task you do every day that makes your life so much better for the days to come? I think this will be the last question we'll take.
Well, that's going to be tough for me to answer because it'll probably be different than a lot of you guys. I was just talking to one of my assistants about this morning. Her name's Eden. We were saying how when your day's really busy, you have to make time to get away from the busyness and let yourself kind of refocus on what your overall plan was. For me, I'm always a busy guy. As soon as I'm done with this, there's another bunch of things I'm going to jump into. And it gets to where you feel like you're hacking your way through the forest and you've got your hatchet and you're hacking all the time. And you can get to where you're just looking for the next branch to hack. and you've lost track of the direction you're actually going in. And then you get these moments that I call like a mountaintop experience, where you get up above everything and you get a different perspective. This typically happens when you take a vacation or you go on a business trip and you're out of your daily routine. Your phone's not blowing up. You're not making decisions all the time. And you're like, wait, why was I even going that way? That's not where I wanted to go. That's completely the wrong way. Oh, I see. It's because the ground was sloping downhill and I just slowly started to follow it. And I just lost track of where I was going. It's actually the wrong way. And then you come back and you get on track. You got to work those mountaintop moments several times a year into what you're doing, or you'll make a lot of progress in the wrong direction. And it's very easy to do that.
Wow, I love that analogy there. Okay, so why don't we wrap it up? So David Greene has a mastermind he would like to let you guys know about. So where can the audience learn more about this mastermind, and what's the mastermind about?
Thanks, Ryan. So it's basically a group of people that I teach myself how to earn more money, be more successful, and grow their net worth. That's what we focus on. So it's all the same type of stuff I talked about now, but more tactically based. So it's mostly made up of entrepreneurs, investors, salespeople, a couple of professional athletes, but it's people that are like, I want to be more successful. I want to do more. And I like how David thinks. They like my philosophy. They like my approach to stuff. So I'll take a concept about how to get your perspective across to someone else. And I'll teach on that like for 4 weeks in a row, right? Here's a book I read. Here's stuff I use. This is the system I use for how I convey thought to someone that doesn't offend them, right? Even if it's an offensive topic, like you're the problem. There's a way you can say that to people where they'll be inspired as opposed to offended. And we bring a lot of different investors in or different business people to talk. I almost got Jocko to come talk to him. I'm still working on that. His assistant wanted $100,000 for him to come for hours. So we weren't able to do that, but I'm working on in the future, getting guys like him, or maybe Ryan Holiday, like authors of people like Robert Greene that can come speak to the group, and you can get a chance to talk to them. And then we'll talk about what we learned and how we can apply that in the different businesses that we run or the goals we have. And then with access to it, you get a weekly call that I'm on that's recorded, so you can watch it later. Access to a private Facebook group of all the members where they're talking about what they learned, how they've applied it, where they went wrong, and those guests that we bring in to talk. So if you want to learn more, you can go to davidgreenemastermind.com, or if you just message me on social media, I can get you some access to it, and I'll put you in touch with Kyle, who can kind of go over what we do and see if it would be a good fit for you.
All right. Thanks so much, David Greene. We appreciate you having you on the show, and we know you're a really busy guy. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. It was great to meet you, Ryan. And thanks, guys. Hope I hear from you.